All right, I think it's time. We're going to go ahead and get started. I am Beth Wooster from Nebraska, and I am Secretary of the National Association of ESEA State Program Administrators. I'm trying to get used to the new name. Before I forget, I want to make sure to tell you to provide your feedback on the app when it's over. If you're wanting credit for coming, that's the way you're going to get credit. So it's my pleasure to introduce Amber Ravenscroft, who is the Manager of Innovation for EdVenture Group, a nonprofit driving change into educational environments to develop the new generation of creators and thinkers. She has secured over $2.5 million in grant funding to drive innovative educational programs into programs into K-12 education with a focus on entrepreneurship and technology integration. Her work has led her to professional development workshops for hundreds of educators throughout Appalachia with focus on augmented and virtual reality and computer science. Ms. Ravenscroft serves as Program Director for CS EdVenture, a Google RISE funded out of school time programs for girls to develop their skills in computer science. The program was one of only 29 internationally funded programs in 2016. Could you please welcome Amber?
Okay, I want to make sure my mic was on. How is everyone doing? Good. Okay, I prepared for about 150 people. As you know, there's an Eagles parade, so that's why I have this nice Eagles-colored blazer to blend in. So I'm just going to let you know we might get out a little bit early. I had some participation made for that many people, so smaller group, quicker session. Okay, so my session is What is she doing here? Shattering the status quo on girls in STEM. And if I would do this again, I would probably do the Mean Girls quote, "You can't sit with us," because this is so relevant for girls in computer science. And I'm going to talk a little bit about our CS EdVenture program, how that came to be, and where we're taking this in terms of professional development for educators. So a little bit about my organization, the EdVenture Group. We're based in Morgantown, West Virginia, and we are a nonprofit educational consulting firm. We actually have 3 employees, but we work with over 100 contracted programs and partners, including REL Appalachia, which is the Regional Education Laboratory. We work with Google. We work with the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education. So we have a wide reach with 3 main full-time employees. We offer curriculum design, so we help build curriculum that's relevant to students' current needs. We offer professional development. I'm very focused on the tech-centric and entrepreneurship education kind of pathways. And we also offer youth programming. What that means is we have a lot of leadership initiatives for students, particularly high school students, to get those soft skills that employers really need, along with middle school and elementary programs around youth leadership. And I'll mention a lot more in detail our tech programming, which we've implemented over the summer, and it's my baby. So I love it. I'm excited about it, and I'm excited to share that with you. So in case you didn't notice, my hair has grown longer. That's taken about 2 years ago, so I need to update that. But I am Amber Ravenscroft. Like I said, I'm the Manager of Innovation. You'll see my business cards on there. We're a nonprofit, so we have limited budget, so it says Program Director, but I actually got an upgrade in my title before I presented here. I manage a variety of programming, including a multi-state entrepreneurship initiative. That is done in partnership with the National Consortium for Entrepreneurship Education. We are targeting 16,000 students throughout Kentucky, Tennessee, Ohio, Virginia, and West Virginia to expose them to entrepreneurship within their K-12 experience at least once. So the whole motto is every student every year will receive entrepreneurship education, which is especially important in rural environments in Appalachia because that is going to be the pathway forward to move them out of this cool-ridden and cool-driven society into entrepreneurial focuses. So that's one of my big projects. I also, as I mentioned before, kind of direct the student leadership workshops. And I was actually talking here before, I'm not a teacher. I didn't come from a teacher background. I actually was a marketing student. I started this job as a marketing intern. We needed a cheaper way to market a nonprofit. And I dipped my toes into one youth leadership workshop, and I was like, this is where I want to be. So I don't come in here with the mindset of I was a teacher, I should be able to tell you that. I come in with I was a student and I would have valued this. So that's where I kind of take my professional development sessions. And also the technology innovation initiatives. Raise your hand if you know how to code. Good, I don't. And it's funny because I'm doing a workshop on girls in STEM, and the importance of me telling you that I can't code is just that I can create. And that's the point of coding, right? These students, they're gonna catch on to it quicker than you will, and you have to let them. And so that was the whole focus of our Girls in STEM campaign and our Girls in STEM Google RISE program, is that we used code.org and we just let them run with it. And throughout that, we did some unplugged activities. We did some hands-on talking about psychological barriers, and it was really innovative and creative to see them kind of create what they could from code.org. Okay, so we're gonna break the ice. I wanna just ask you to raise your hands. Raise your hand if you're a teacher. Okay, do we have any administrators, like principals? What are you? Central office, okay. How about district level? Yeah, okay. Okay, raise your hand if you are K through 2. Okay, 3 through 5. Okay, 6 through 8. Okay. Anybody high school? Okay, anybody higher ed? Okay, perfect. Okay, so I just wanted to get to know you all a little bit to see where my audience is. A lot of our Google RISE programming was geared towards 3 through 8. It's a good target audience for girls in STEM, but the barriers and the psychological concepts I'm going to talk about at the end of the session are applicable to any teacher in any K through 12 environment. So we're going to talk a little bit about West Virginia, and that's where this program was created. Do I have anybody from West Virginia here? Oh, hey, welcome. Where are you from in West Virginia? Hampshire. I'm from Allegheny County, Maryland. I played Hampshire in high school. So anybody, where are we out? It's from the south. Okay. How about North England, New England area up there? How about west? How about Midwest? You're really here in the between. Okay, okay. I just want to, so I'm going to preface this by saying we found this really works well in West Virginia with these rural communities where these girls are unfamiliar with STEM. They don't have a lot of access to those resources. That being said, they were all in all these participants were in Title I schools. So it could be applicable and it could be shared with any Title I school. It's relevant and it's real. So West Virginia, here's a little bit of background on the state's economics, okay? So less than 20% of all of West Virginia's adults over 25 years of age have a bachelor's degree. That's just the reality of the state. Our per capita income in 2016 is only $24,000, okay? And by 2040, it's estimated that 1 in 4 West Virginians will be over 65 years old. We are one of the only states where our average age is getting higher, and we are exporting our youth like crazy. They're going across borders to work, regardless of industry, just because there's a lack of industry here. So there's what's called a tech revolution kind of happening in West Virginia. We're really focusing on computer science in our organizations and nonprofits as a way to bring back industry to West Virginia. I don't know if you've ever heard the quote, "You can't teach a coal miner how to code." You can. So in Kentucky, they're doing a program called BitSource where they're taking displaced coal miners and they're retraining them in coding and they're providing them jobs. We actually are offering a coding through Salesforce training where they'll have 2 credentials when they graduate. They'll have guaranteed jobs. These are displaced coal miners, not students, but they'll have 2 credentials. They'll have a 100% guaranteed job rate when they graduate, and they're completing those certifications in a year. And that's through the Appalachian Regional Commission's Power Program. So coding is a huge buzzword in West Virginia. There are a lot of initiatives happening, and we're just lucky to have tapped into that kind of movement with Google RISE as well. Okay, so computer science. We're going to talk a little bit about the statistics behind where is computer science, where are we in terms of graduation rates versus actual need. So in 1984, 37% of all computer science graduates were women. That seemed reasonable? It seems high, right? If you consider what it is now. 18% of computer science graduates now, today, are women. We are going backwards. And in an era where the technology is going forward, that's a shame. How many of you have seen Hidden Figures? Great. How many of you have showed your students Hidden Figures? Good, perfect. I love that. Okay. So that's kind of the era where these women were powerful as computers. And then we've kind of taken advantage of computers already exist, so we don't know how to make them work, how we make them work anymore. We just kind of assume that they work. And so students are like, they automatically assume that a computer is going to work, but they don't care about how it works. And so that's the point of computer science education and getting it back into K-12 is that eventually they need to know how to work these computers so that they're relevant in the workforce today. So West Virginia computer science statistics. These are from code.org's stats page. So it was 2015 data, but it hasn't significantly increased since then. There are 158 graduates of computer science in 2015, and that is from public four-year institutions, so West Virginia University, Marshall University. Only 11% of those were women. And if you read my little description, I think that rounds out to about 17 total women for 158 graduates in our entire state. And that they're made to fill 1,087 open computing jobs, which is 3.6 times the job demand just in that state alone. How many, I have this data on my phone, let me pull it up. How many of you are from California? Anybody? Okay. So in California, let me pull this up real quick. I wanted to give some comparisons so that you weren't thinking, oh, well, West Virginia's alone. They're all like this. So in California, they had 4,000 computer science graduates. And we're like, okay, that's good. But they have 68,000 open jobs. So, I mean, West Virginia's probably doing better. New York, 3,800 computer science graduates, 32,000 open jobs. Even Alaska had 25. Are you from Alaska? Oh my goodness, welcome. How was that trip? I bet. Okay, so this is so I'm glad I picked Alaska. You had 25 computer science graduates for 655 open jobs. So, I mean, Alaska, think about the expanse of that state. There are still 700 jobs for computer science that are left waiting because we don't have the skills being outsourced from our higher education or the students interested in pursuing that as a higher education alternative. So I want to talk a little bit about why there's a gap here. So raise your hand if you think that middle school students are the most interested in computer science. Yeah, anybody? They are. So here's why. Right now we're really focusing on computers, computing, computer science. It's for girls. There's a big, it's a buzzword, right? Girls in STEM, girls who code, huge programs. So they're really getting this kind of confidence in middle school that they're losing in high school. Other reasons are their experience of computing. A lot of them are they're dipping their toes in code.org and those various hour of code programs where they can really get that exposure. They have an inspiring teacher. I'll give you an example of this. We actually have a teacher named Cynthia Madecki. She is from North Elementary School in Monongalia County. She's an English teacher, but she runs a Cool Coders Club, and I'm going to talk a little bit about it, but she has found out ways to integrate coding into elementary school English so that they have this exposure to computer science in a classroom that they normally wouldn't. And computing is cool. So there's not as much of a stigma that computing's weird or it's not for girls in middle school. So they're at their peak interest in pursuing computer science and wanting to learn more about it when they're in those crucial grades of 6 through 8. And then when we get to high school, it drastically drops. And why do we think that it's a drastic drop in high school? Anybody have any ideas? Yeah?
Well, I read this, that boys are aggressive and girls back off.
Okay.
They can't do the aggression of the competitiveness.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so she said that boys are aggressive and they kind of tend to take over, they're overbearing with women in their classes. Yeah? Okay, so not many professional references or mentors for them. Did you say something?
Well, in high school you're offering credits, just simple availability to actually offer that credit in many, many schools. It's very, very difficult if you just don't have the staff.
Right, you don't even have a teacher or a class for computer science. That's so true. In West Virginia, actually, where's my Hampshire County? Do you know if we have computer science standards?
No.
We do. We do, but our schools don't know about them. So that's a big issue as well. They don't know that we have computer science standards, and they're often so understaffed as it is with just their regular credits that they are not offering computer science courses. And so that's what we're really trying to do, is provide opportunities to integrate just one exposure or one experience to computer science into existing curriculum. Like a math teacher could take them and do an hour of code, and it would be relevant to their courses. So another reason for high school students' interests to decrease, especially female students, they don't have any friends in their classes. That kind of ties in with the males are overbearing. One girl might be interested in computer science. She gets in a class with all females, nobody to talk to. She's gonna leave. It's high school. It's not enjoyable. That goes back to they don't have teachers or the curriculum really to teach it, so they're kind of struggling. If the teacher's struggling, the students are gonna struggle. If you're not comfortable teaching something, the students are gonna struggle as well. And then computing is just not taught. Again, goes in. It doesn't exist in a lot of these schools. And then back up, college. If you kind of chosen computer science, something with tech as a career path, chances are you probably like it. So an inspiring teacher and a positive role model, like you said back there, is so important in really ensuring that these students stay through and graduate with computer science degrees. This is my favorite quote. I do it every time. I talk about it every single time I'm doing a tech PD. It is our duty as educators to prepare our students for a world that does not yet exist. In fact, one that we cannot even imagine. This is so important. This ties into our tech and our entrepreneurship sessions because these students are going to create the world around us. Chances are they're going to learn faster than you are with some of these technologies, and that's okay. We have to give them that freedom to create and build their own worlds. Okay, so all that. We applied for a Google RISE grant in 2016, and I applied for it under the name Gamer Girls. Now, does anybody know why gamer girls might be a problem? Yes? There aren't many of them. Okay, that's not what I'm gonna say, but that's a good point. Anybody else have any idea why gamer girls as a name probably wasn't a good idea? It says girls. You guys are gonna be shocked. Anybody else? Okay, so I tried to buy the domain name, Gamer Girls, right? I typed it into Google. This is what I'm dealing with. Okay, there is already amazing biases against gamer girls because they've been sexualized by men in video gaming industries. I was like, this is a hurdle I'm already trying to jump, and I haven't even worked with the students. I was so frustrated. So this is why we didn't call it Gamer Girls, because we didn't want to make these students feel like they were sexualized in any way or that they had to overcome these huge barriers to STEM. I was so discouraged by this. I was upset within like 2 seconds of typing this in. So we're moving on past this, and we decided to call it something really simple. We called it CS EdVenture, so Computer Science Adventure. It's a play on our name. It's a play on computer science. So that's what we decided on. This little girl, she was in my 3 through 5th grade class. Her name was Mabel. She came the first day wearing that shirt that said, anything guys can code, girls can code better, and I loved her immediately. I was like, you are gonna be my superstar. So CS EdVenture was an immersive summer learning opportunity for female students in grades 3 through 8. And what we did was we broke them up. We did 1 week with each group. So the first group was the middle school students 6 through 8, and then the second group was our 3 through 5. And even within the age brackets of somebody going into 3rd grade and somebody going into 5th grade, you have extreme differences in their knowledge content. So it was really great to see. She was going into 5th grade, and she worked with a little girl, I forget her name, tiny little girl, she was cute, Ella. She worked with Ella constantly. They were like buddies. And by the end of the week, Ella was coding just as good as Mabel. So it was crazy. But we just wanted to expose them to opportunities available in computer science, give them some coding background, talk a little bit about game design, and learn about some emerging technologies like augmented and virtual reality. How many of you have experience with augmented or virtual reality, have done stuff with it? Great, great. A couple of you, perfect. So I'm not going to go too much into detail with that. I'll explain what we did with that, but it was really inspiring just seeing these students interact and get comfortable with technology. Like I mentioned, a lot of them had no experience whatsoever before they came in. Like I said, it was funded by Google, the Google RISE program. We were one of only 29 internationally. In the United States, we were one of 14. So it was really great. We got to connect with people from Denmark to Brazil and see what they were doing in terms of girls in coding. So very inspiring to see that it's not just a United States of America problem. It is a global issue. So what we did coding basics. So we just talked about vocabulary, like loops, conditionals, all that kind of information that they would need to know, but they probably don't have any opportunity to learn about it in a classroom. We did algorithmic thinking, so just step by steps, how do you get through it? That's all code is, right? A series of steps that create something through a computer. Pattern recognition, and we used block-based coding. Raise your hand if you've used code.org. Good, good. So code.org has block-based coding as its primary workshop and application, and then you can teach them. They can like click it over to look at the JavaScript, but we kept it in block-based coding. As I said, they were really new to this. For emerging technologies, we went over augmented reality. We utilized Google Cardboard as they were our sponsor. It was a super affordable augmented reality tool. Virtual reality, actually, Google Cardboard's virtual reality. Augmented reality, we did, have you ever heard of Erasma? Yes, okay. So Erasma allows you to take a trigger image and kind of overlay a 3D image on it so that basically your books could come to life. I had the students develop their own logos of their names, and those came to life. So it was really cool to see them get to do that. Mixed reality is just a merging of the two. And then maker spaces. So we had, what are those little beads called that you melt? They start with a P. Anybody know what I'm talking about? Fuse beads. We had fuse beads, and these girls are like obsessed with fuse beads. You could not get them away from the makerspace table. We had 3D pens. We had a leap motion little sensor where you can control your computer with your hand. It was really neat. And so that was more of a tech playground. So what we did was we set up a different station, and we just let them interact. And that was a whole day, and they were so thrilled with that. And we asked them, where could this take you? Where could you see this working in school? Where could you see this working outside of school? And they had such great ideas for, said, I could take a virtual field trip in geography. And we're like, yes, you could. So it was great to see them integrate both of those with their regular classes and outside of their classes. And then we talked a little bit about design thinking. This was super important because throughout the week they were tasked with developing a game through code.org's platform. It's very simple. They have some preloaded concepts and preloaded characters, so it was kind of limiting in what they could create. But we did talk about entrepreneurship and game design and ideation and how to think about things creatively so that you're building something brand new through code. And then we went through project development, all that kind of stuff. So one of the main focuses of our class was making this real, making it applicable, because coding is such an abstract concept that sometimes it's very hard for students to understand it, especially if they're working just straight into a computer. They really don't understand coding as something that they can create a tangible product from. So what we did was we did a lot of unplugged activities that brought things to life. So for example, we were working with variables, and we had them code their own bracelets. So they had to write down the ideas for how their bracelet would be built, what kind of color beads they wanted, and they had to code the whole thing. We would check it, and then they would build their bracelets. This is another activity that we did. If you want to go ahead and push play on the video. This is one of my favorite unplugged activities. What do we think that they're doing? Anybody have any guess what we had them do for this unplugged activity? What do you guys think a dance routine is? Could you break a dance routine down into code? Yes. We taught them loops, if-then statements, conditionals, all with a dance routine. And so for the older girls, the 6 through 8, we made them watch a Beyonce video, put a ring on it. And so had them go through and try to code the chorus of that dance. And they were like, she's too fast. Can you slow it down? She's moving too fast. And they were calling all the variables like butt shake. And I was like, this is great. I've had so much fun with this. For the little kids, they don't really know what Beyonce's dance moves are. So we did the chicken dance. I said, code me the chicken dance. You guys stand up there. I'm going to read this out, and you need to make sure that you've done it correctly. So they're like, no, 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 no. So that's what she's doing. She's trying to, they called it, it's so funny watching them call the variables. They're like, chicken wings. That's what we're going to call this one. But the whole time that they're having fun and learning and dancing and moving, they're creating code, just not in a computer. And they're beginning to think about the steps that go into code. They're beginning to think like an algorithm. They're learning about loops. They didn't want to write down flap hands 4 times. They want to write repeat 4 times, flap hands. They're learning how to shift coding into something that's digital by doing it in person, and it was very inspiring. So there's connections to coding everywhere. Dance routine is just one of them, a recipe. Did any of you, when I was in 3rd grade, I had to, they didn't call it coding. I had to write down the instructions to make a PB&J. Has anybody ever have you done that with your students? Okay, I made it like 1 step in. I forgot to unscrew the peanut butter lid. So it was like bread, peanut butter jar, bread. And that's one of the things we talk about here, and we actually have them code their own sundaes, where they have to take off the ice cream lid, scoop. Sometimes they forget to turn over the scoop, so they're just sitting there with a scoop of ice cream, and you're like, coding, you have to remember every step. So that's so important, and that's what we really tried to do with them, was make sure that they remember every step. So now we're gonna dance. So what I want you to do is a table, and if you have only a few people at your tables, kind of join others. This is a really cool activity. You can do it in any classroom. I've had gym teachers do this. A lot of gym classes, I remember in like 7th grade, I had to do the YMCA as part of my gym sessions. So a gym teacher could easily integrate coding with their class. Like you could do it with so many things if you just think of it as algorithmic problem solving, and talk about it a little bit as coding steps. So what I want you to do is I want you to get into tables, and I want you to identify a popular dance. It can be the YMCA, Macarena. I recommend making it simple unless you want to write some really complex code on a piece of paper. And then I want you to develop a code for that dance routine, but don't write what the name of the dance is on the paper, okay? So you have 2 blank sheets there. I want you to write down the code for a popular dance, just the chorus, so like Macarena. What am I doing? Yeah. Okay, write it down step by step, and then just let me know when you're done. So I'm not assigning you dance routines. You can do whatever dance you'd like, but go ahead and start working on that. You have 15 minutes to write down as much of the code as you can, okay? Yeah, and feel free to join bigger groups. It might be better for you. I'm going to give you a warning. It might be a little better to group up here for the final verdict. All right, I'm going to need your code. All right, do I have a table of volunteers to go first? Oh, okay. I'm giving you directions that somebody else wrote. Okay? And the task, so the challenge is you have to figure out what dance they coded, okay? Pick a card, any card. If it's yours, you got to give it back. Okay. Hold on. I'm going to tell you what. I'm going to give everybody one so that you can read the code and try to figure that out, and then I'll ask for volunteers because everyone's going to dance. Everyone's going to dance. Open that. Is it yours? Nope. Okay. Check this out. Is it yours? Okay. There you go. Did you hear them talking? No.
Yes, we heard everything.
It is crazy how inherently competitive teachers can be when you give them a student activity. Is it yours? All right. You guys submitted one. All right. Let me know if it's yours. Okay. Is it yours? Hey, can I have this back? Somehow my last table has theirs. Okay, feel free to get up and try out the dance. Stop.
It says big floppy fish.
Oh, I know what this is. Do you know what it is? How do you not know what that dance move is?
You don't know who you're working with.
I know 100%. I know exactly whoever wrote this did good code.
They did good code.
Yeah, they did good code. You just don't know that. You just don't know the dance move. You just don't know the dance move. It's like this. Do you know what? I 100% know what that is. You just don't know the dance move. You don't know what this is. I'm not telling you.
No, I can do it. I can do what I wrote. It was very clear.
Look up. Drop shoulder. Look up the Bernie and see if you think that's what that is. I'm pretty sure that's what that is, but I don't know. No. You don't have to. Trust me, you don't have to sing anything. No singing is involved. Yeah, thank you. I was like, I know exactly what that is. Oh, I know. No. How's it going? Do you guys know? You think you know what it is? Okay, you can get up there with the dance. You can have music. Okay, yeah, I'll just hold it right here. That's fine. Hey, there's a good point back here. Somebody might need to debug somebody else's code, so feel free to do that if you need to. What did you say? All right, does everyone know their dance? Does my first group know their dance?
Great one. Yeah. So this one is the electric slide. But there's a coding bug we have to
Feel free. What's your dance? Okay. I keep doing this. I have to like. Do you know what yours is? Oh, good. All right, I'm going to ask my first group to come up here. Or actually, if you want to stand by your table, that's fine. And somebody read the code out and somebody do the dance. My volunteers first. All right, all, let's appreciate these dance moves. You can, read it out, and then if it's easier, sometimes it's easier to just dance it, but. They just want you to repeat it. So what's your dance? Good job, guys. Good job. Who coded that dance? All right, my West Virginia folks. Good job. All right, anybody else want to volunteer? You feel confident? You know your dance. Anybody volunteering? I'll pick. How about my ladies that already did it? Yeah. Okay. Go ahead and stand up and just read the code out, and we'll. Yeah. Go ahead and stand up and do it. So, do you know your dance move? Okay. Somebody dance for me.
What are you gonna dance?
Just dance. It'll be fine.
Raise hands, point index fingers up next to ears, rest position. Head and tap head to index finger. Remove fingers from head to rest position. Lower hands to touch shoulder. Untouch. Bend at waist. Lower arms to touch knees. Move hands and bend lower to touch toes. Untouch. Raise hands to knees. Repeat loop one time.
Okay. You don't have to repeat. You repeat. All right. What's the dance? Who knew you would get exercise today too? Who knew? Who knew? All right. Who else has a challenging one that they think they got? Okay. You're going to go.
Grapevine to the right. Take one step to your right with your right foot. Grapevine to the left. Take one step with your left foot. Rock forward and back with a toe touch. Step back with your right foot, then bring your left foot to meet it. Quarter turn left and repeat.
Okay, what is it, guys? Electric slide? Is that what you guys think?
We're going to have our own version of it. I kick, she taps.
See, I still have not mastered the electric slide. I go to so many weddings, and everyone's all coordinated, and I'm like, oh, okay. Okay, how about my ladies here?
Drop your arms down to the side of your body. Flail your arms around while keeping your arms down and near your side. Think floppy fish. Then turn your knees and shuffle your feet slowly, turning in opposite directions. And stop. Begin again when the stop.
Does anybody know what, first off, does anybody know what this is? Oh, goodness. What is it? It's the Bernie. Does everybody know what the Bernie is? Okay. Yeah. They were really struggling with that here. They were like flopping like a fish. I don't know what that is. Okay. Alrighty. Hey, she did it. Are you all ready? All right.
Put your right hand in front of you out at a perpendicular angle to your body, palm down. Put your right hand behind you perpendicular as before, palm down. Repeat number 1. While repeating number 1, shake your hand. Put hands at the side of body. Shake hips left to right 2 to 3 times while wagging your index finger left to right 2 to 3 times. Spin in a circle slowly, 360 degrees, and shout, "That's what it's all about." Clap once, step, about, step 7. Clap once after step 7. Repeat steps 1 and 8 again, only use left hand instead of right hand. So that would be you put your left hand.
Wouldn't it be exciting if this was how every dance was? Somebody just read it like this.
That's what it's all about, baby.
Okay, so that's the Hokey Pokey. That was that group? They wrote the Hokey. Good job. Good job. All right. Here you go.
One hop forward, both feet. Right arm out straight while making a fist.
Okay.
Bend right arm and bring waving hand back towards your body while stepping back. 2 steps with both feet. One hop forward, both feet. Right arm out straight while making a fist. Left arm out straight while making a fist. Bend right arm and bring waving hand back. Bend right arm and towards your body while stepping back.
I'm sorry, I love this.
Waving hand back towards your body.
Any ideas? Hey, how about my group? I know it's you. Why don't you demonstrate? That's it. It was a valiant attempt. Your wave was just like so pretty, and it was not supposed to be. Okay, how about here? All right, we only have 2 groups left, then we'll move on.
Step right, step right, step left, step back, rock forward, rock back, kick out right, turn to right, repeat.
Okay. Do you know what it is? Yeah. Good job. There's 2 people who did that. Okay, final group. Where'd half your group go? Oh, is it because of the dancing? No, I'm good. You're good. Yeah, you're like, yes. Okay.
Spread legs, stance, shoulder width apart. And you do this simultaneously, steps 2, 3, and 4. Left hand on left hip, open hand.
Would we like the music? Is it good?
Well, you guys can sing it, right? What is it?
Yeah, I said no singing. No. Okay, good job, guys. So can you raise your hand if you think your students would like that activity? Yes, they would, 100% would, because you did. So it's exciting to see them get to do that. I gotta find my remote. So that's just a cool kind of off-the-grid activity that you can do. This is especially important for us in West Virginia because sometimes we don't have access to technology and our Wi-Fi isn't the best. So it's a good way to incorporate coding while staying off of computers. So just a little bit about the impact of our courses. We saw significant increases in their knowledge of coding bases and how they would use emerging technologies. We did pre and post testing just on their knowledge of the vocabulary, if they could do a simple coding activity to get like a bee to the honey, like that, and they were just really low on their knowledge about that. So it actually pretty much doubled their knowledge base. And another focus that we really wanted to incorporate on the 4th day of each camp, we talked a little bit about the psychological basis of why are girls not as involved in computer science as male students. And so we're going to talk a little bit about 3 different psychological concepts: unconscious bias, stereotype threat, and imposter syndrome, and just to give you some ideas of how you can really address these in your classrooms. So we did, on the first pre-test of the Google RISE program, we asked this question: why are there more male computer scientists than female computer scientists? And these are some of the answers. Women are not as good at math and science. This is from 6th to 8th grade students, which is completely disheartening to me that they already think this, that they're already inclined to think that they're more suited towards the English and the arts as young as 6th or 8th grade. And then this one really shocked me. And I thought that I would be out of this kind of mindset already, and nothing against stay-at-home moms, of course. But one of the little girls said, women are supposed to be stay-at-home moms. And I was so sad by this because it really limited what she thought that she could do with her future, because that is all she had known. And nobody had really told her otherwise that she could go into anything related to tech. Yeah? This is, she was going into 8th grade. Yeah, this is the 6th through 8th grade responses. And I'm really encouraged, I was actually very encouraged, and this is another thing about, remember when I talked about how it's so crucial to talk to middle school students because they're at their peak? This is where we failed them, because these are 6th and 8th grade students who already had these mindsets in place in these rural West Virginia communities, and it was really upsetting to me to have that as a response. But I'll show you one of the responses from the elementary school students, and you'll get a little bit excited about this. So we asked them, why is computer science important? And a lot of them, the answers are like, it's important because they make games and they make software. And this little girl, she was 3rd grade student, said, it helps women feel stronger about themselves, and we can kick the men's butts off. And I was like, you go, girl. So I was really encouraged that the younger age groups of 3rd through 5th grade had this kind of really positive outlook about computer science. And the 6th through 8th grade students, I had already I was dealing with a mindset shift in them already, where I should have just been supporting it and already an interest in mindsets. So we're going to talk briefly about unconscious bias. Is anybody familiar with unconscious bias? Okay, good. So basically, part of the Google RISE program is we have a cohort of individuals, and every month they would give us different research related to computer science and why people are interested in it. And basically, unconscious bias is this series of stored experiences in our brain that affect us in our instantaneous decision making. So we already have these biases programmed into us from a very young age, and it affects how we teach, it affects how we talk to others, and it's an underlying component of your everyday life. So Harvard did a project called Project Implicit that actually tests your unconscious bias and your implicit association reaction time. So we're going to do a test. So if you're facing this is your left arm, this is your right arm, okay? So the left arm is going to represent female. You associate things with female. Your right arm is going to represent male, okay? So in the middle of this page, in the middle of this screen, there's going to be a word, and I want you to raise your hand if you associate it with female or male, okay? Husband. Okay. Yeah, if you just associate it with male or female, either way. Mother. Okay, left. Sister. Wife. Brother. Son. Nephew. Okay, we're going to do another one. Same thing. If you associate it with liberal arts, left. If you associate it with a science, right. Okay? The humanities. Biology. Math. Art. English. Chemistry. Physics. Okay, so now we're gonna pair them, okay? So your left is gonna be your female and your liberal arts. Your right is gonna be your science and your male, okay? It's gonna be the same series of words, but it's gonna be mixed now. Husband. Biology. Art. You're already kind of mixing them up. I love it. English. Mother. Physics. Daughter. Wife. Math. Now what? We switch the male and the female, okay? So male is now with liberal arts and female is with science. You are significantly slower already. I'm just letting you know. You are significantly slower. All right, biology. Art. I saw you. You messed up. Okay. What do you think that Harvard discovered from that test? Any guesses? When you associate, yeah, go ahead.
Did they have it color-coded like that?
Yes. Yeah, they had it color-coded like that. Yeah. So actually, I first found out about this from our Google cohort had released a training that they did at work where they did implicit association with their employees. And what they found was that people are it's very easy to associate words when there's just one category. It's very easy to associate words when it's liberal arts and it's women, and it's science and it's male. When you flip that, no matter how you flip it, whether it's first, whether it's second, there are seconds of delay between your instantaneous reaction to pair those things. It's very hard for somebody to associate chemistry when it is on the side with women. It's just there's a slight delay, and they've done this many times, and that in itself is implicit association. And that is what unconscious bias is doing in our classrooms because you don't even mean it. It's ingrained in us. Actually, Google was doing this study where they were determining what their implicit association was in their workspaces, and their meeting rooms were all named after famous computer scientists, and there were no women. And just the rooms themselves being named after male computer scientists, said that their workspace was implicitly biased to males being computer scientists rather than females. It's just little things like that in how you're saying things, even your workspace, that kind of stuff that affect implicit bias and unconscious bias. So Google recommended these interventions, and I'm going to talk about them very briefly. I want to make sure that I promised you we would get out a little early, so I'm going to go over these, and I encourage you, Harvard has a project implicit test where they do it like this. They have one on biases against age. They have one about different races. There's a lot of different implicit association tests out there that you could have if you want to talk to your students about being aware of them. There's a lot of resources out there for you. So how do we combat implicit bias in our classrooms? We nurture motivation to reduce unconscious bias by building awareness of existing biases. So basically what we just did, right? You now are aware that you do have a slight bias. You might think you're the most unbiased person in the world, But your unconscious mind gives you a slight lean towards associating males with STEM fields. So just being aware of that is the first step in an intervention method. Building awareness of the psychological basis of unconscious bias. This is great on Project Implicit. They have all kinds of resources around this in professional development training specific to this. Promote evaluation by individuation, so don't group your students. Analyze them based on who they are and the effort that they put into it. That's super important. We talk about that with growth mindset, all kinds of stuff like that too, but base it on the individual, not the group. Increase contact between social groups. There's actually a study that says that women, for example, we did a girls-only coding camp. There's a study that says there's no research that indicates they'll even perform better in a girls-only environment. They'll perform better if you expose them to it regardless. If you put boys and girls into a camp, they'll do well. It's exposure in general. So don't necessarily branch out and just do girls only because it's not going to necessarily affect the unconscious bias. Promote positive emotions when interacting with outgroups. Increase empathy and perspective taking. This is so important, and this was a big learning curve for me in West Virginia, is empathy for people in especially rural areas. So we work a lot with McDowell County, and just being aware of the mindsets that are already ingrained in students, especially in low socioeconomic areas, is so important in overcoming biases against them. And then building a sense of partnership that reduces outgroup status. So I talked about the 3rd grader being paired with the 5th grader. Pair a boy with a girl. Make them uncomfortable. Get comfortable being uncomfortable is one of my favorite quotes because it's so important in any aspect of education. Once you're uncomfortable is when you'll grow. And this is also true, I always tell this story. This is also true in reverse, right? So, for example, my roommate in college, she went into a nursing program, and she had one male nurse in her group of students. And she got to clinicals, and she went to a patient's bedside one day, her and the male nurse. And they were like, "Oh, doctor," to the male nurse. And they basically shamed him for wanting to be a nurse because they anticipated that he would be higher than that because he was a male. And he's like, "I want to be a nurse. This is what I wanted to do. I've wanted to do it my whole life." So it's true in reverse as well. And we are often at risk of making males outgroups in today's society because we focus so much on girls who code and girls who STEM. How about just everyone code? Okay? Just be aware of it. It's true in reverse as well. So impact, exposure to an unconscious bias. This is going to lead right into our next concept of stereotype threat. It can trigger self-fulfilling prophecies by changing stereotype groups' behaviors to conform to that stereotype. So, like I mentioned before with that young lady saying, women are not good at math and science. That's stereotype threat. Because she believes that, she's not even going to try in math and science classes. That in itself is stereotype threat. So the actual definition is being at risk of conforming as a self-characteristic, a negative stereotype about one social group. So she was already confirming her stereotype by not trying. And I've actually been, now that I'm thinking about how I interacted as a student, from probably the 6th grade on, I just thought that I was bad at math because I wasn't good, because everyone told me I was really good at English. So I was like, I must not be that good at math. It's not true, but I made it true because I didn't try as hard in math as I tried in English, and now I can't do math worth a darn. So it's just, I've confirmed my stereotype threat, and it's just how it is. But there's nothing to say that if it's a self-characteristic that it has to be. You just kind of conform to stereotypes that exist about you where you should be trying to combat them. So this is a case study. This is Isabel. I love her. She was in my 3rd through 5th grade group. She came in here the first day, similar to Mabel with her, anything guys can code, girls would code better, and she said, girls will change the world. She went on to join that cool coders group that I mentioned earlier, but she was so inspiring because she's already a minority. She's already dealing with that, and she's already a girl, and she was like, I'm gonna code. That's it, I'm gonna code. And I was like, good for you, girlfriend. You go do that. So this case study is very important because it says that if you ask students to, particularly on these big tests, if you ask them to self-identify their race or their gender at the beginning of the tests, they do significantly worse than if they wait until the end to identify their race or their gender. because they're already thinking about that as a characteristic of their life when they go into that test. So it's interesting to think about just one little twist on how you're testing students. If you ask any of those demographic questions or if you avoid them at all, it'll significantly increase or decrease their testing results. So how do we provide intervention on stereotype threat? Does anybody know who that is? That girl? Any guesses? Okay, that is Carly Kloss. Does anybody recognize that name? Okay, yeah, who is she? She's a Victoria's Secret model. She's a coder, yes. So I asked the girls, all right, I pull this up, especially my 6th through 8th grade girls, like the Victoria's Secret angels are like these amazing goddesses to them. So I said, who's that? And they're like, Carly Kloss, she's my favorite Victoria's Secret angel. And I was like, oh, good. And then I was like, do you guys know that she codes? And they were like, no. Because they have this image in their mind of what a woman in computer science looks like, and it is not that, right? As soon as you see a model that can code, you're like, oh, I can too. So revolutionizing how girls think and providing them positive role models that they can relate to is so important in overcoming this stereotype threat. In self-affirmation, we're going to talk a little bit about that, but how you have girls talk to themselves and how they are confident in their own manners around computer science is so important in just kind of promoting and overcoming this stereotype threat. And also, we mentioned this a little bit before, it's similar to the unconscious bias, but really emphasizing effort and motivation over talent. And we do a lot of training around growth mindset, so that's why I referred to that. But basically, if you promote a growth mindset, you're overcoming stereotype threat with any kind of audience. And so this is a case study on self-affirmation. So in the first study, women performed worse on a math test when it was described as diagnostic of their intelligence in math, right? Because the stereotype is women are not good at math. So when they came in, they sat down, they took a hard test, and they said, this is going to determine how smart you are in mathematics. The woman did significantly worse, right? But in the second study, women performed better when they were told in advance that they were considered inferior because their self-affirmation said, I'm not inferior. So when you say you're already stereotyped versus it's math intelligence, that change in their mindset because they wanted to overcome the addition of the existence of the stereotype versus just thinking it was intelligence was significant in affecting their test performance. So it's interesting to think about how are you talking to your students? Are they aware of stereotype threats that they're already feeding into, and can they overcome them if you just talk to them about it? Okay, and the final theory we're going to talk about today is imposter syndrome. And it's a concept where high-achieving individuals, some of the brightest minds in their field, feel like imposters and that they don't deserve being there. And one of my favorite examples is Tina Fey. She says all the time that she does not deserve to be in the comedian world because she is a woman and she feels like an imposter. She feels like she doesn't belong there. She's a director. She's worked her way up from the start. She has the grit and the perseverance to get there, but she still feels like an imposter sometimes. So why do we need to talk about imposter syndrome? We do a Women in Tech webinar series where we ask women in the field what was one of the biggest things that they had to overcome when they went into higher education. And one of the young girls said, you know, I had one of the best grades in the class. I graduated like summa cum laude, but the teacher would ask her constantly to answer all the questions because she was a girl. He wanted to make her feel included, but it also put her on the spot. And it made her feel like an imposter because she said, even though I knew them, I would blank, or I would feel like I didn't belong here. And that is in itself imposter syndrome and how you feel like you don't belong there. So how do we overcome this? We understand external factors to success. Being aware that luck, timing, connections, and your personality have an effect on your success. When all of those are excluded, it's you that made you successful. It's you and your hard work. So understanding if you can strike through all those external factors and the only other result is that you worked hard, you deserve to be there too. Owning your accomplishment hand in hand. Visualize a body double. This is super important, and that's why Bizarrevarks. I had a lot of elementary school. Are you familiar with Bizarrevark? Yeah? Okay. Bizarrevark is, I'm really not good at this because I'm not like in the lingo of the young kids, but basically it's this show where there are two young women and they make their own app. I'm going to ask you, they make their own apps and Yeah.
So the school is set up almost like not, they don't call it Google, but it's something that sounds like Google. And they basically, you know, make their videos that are supposed to be very high on demand and
Yeah.
you know, want the followers and the audience and stuff like that.
Yeah, so my coworker Jennifer, she has 2 young daughters, Delaney and Mila, and they love Bizarrevark. And when I first found out about the show, I realized that it is exactly what we need in terms of empowering young girls to believe that they can create. Because the 2 main characters in here, they go to that school and they make all these digital videos and they're famous and they own their success. And that's whenever I was talking to my 3rd through 8th graders, they love this show. And I said, what would those main characters from Bizarrevark do if they were asked how to kind of sell what they're doing, their videos? And they were like, they would be so positive. They would be little coders. They'd be great. So I'm like, imagine what they would do. And if you're not doing it, do that. And then finally, the last thing, if somebody compliments you, somebody compliments anybody, I think we're all kind of at fault with this, where we try to be really humble. If you deserve it, just say thank you and zip it. Just say, thank you, I appreciate it, I worked hard on that. Don't say anything else. If you worked hard for it, own it. So that's the best way to overcome imposter syndrome. My girls were great at this after you told them, and they were all about it. We had this little girl, they make their own mantra. They make their own kind of saying for self-affirmation to overcome it. And we had this little girl, she'd be like, code on, girl. And she'd just run around and be like, code on, girl. She'd be filtering behind every other little girl coding. It was awesome. So in our program, we learned about the barriers to STEM. We talked about positive role models in computer science. We actually showed them a video on failure from the Girls Who Code founder. And then we talked a little bit, they had them identify a female computer scientist, write a little bit about their history, and then kind of showcase that so that we're a little bit more aware of those. We talked about hidden figures. A lot of the little girls had seen that and they loved it. Develop their own mantras, as I said, showcase their work to parents and guardians on the last day. So this is so funny. I think I have a pointer. Oh, no, I don't. Go back. Okay, so the little girl here on the end, the first day, she bawled her eyes out and left, okay? And I was like so sad because she was really uncomfortable. She was going to her first time. She was going into 6th grade. She didn't know how to handle it. So it was a big transition for her. And I encouraged her. I said, it's okay, like, go home, come back tomorrow, it'll be a new day. That's her grandparents right there. By the end of the 5-day camp, she had written more code than any of my other students, including the 7th and 8th graders. I was so impressed by her. And we asked them to make one level of a game that they could win. A big component of game design is that you can win a game. And she had like 5 levels. I was so impressed by her. Right next to her is Izzy. She actually had come in with a little bit of base knowledge, so she even made like a cut scene for her video where they were hitting penguins, and it was very interesting. And the best part was that it wasn't because their parents were working. Their grandparents picked them up, and their parents were like, "You did that?" It was awesome to see them kind of flourish in an environment where they got to showcase that to their loved ones. So I'm going to end it with this. Remember how I talked about their mantras? This is Autumn. Her mom is on the tech field trip day, I'll go back a little bit. On the tech field trip day, I let them tear into computers. I sat full computers in front of them, and I said, break them apart, just so they could see what it looked like inside. So I gave them screwdrivers, they were having fun, they were ripping their keyboards up, it was a mess, and I had to clean it up. But Autumn's mom does that for a living. She puts computers together, but she really wasn't techie. The very first 2 days, she was very timid. The 3rd day, when she got to rip into the computers, she was all about it. By the 4th day, she had coded her own app. And she is my favorite for her mantra that she developed. So I'm going to have him play it for you.
Okay, because baby, you're a scientist studying technology. Make him go, as you change the world.
Let me tell you something. I did not task her to do this at all. She was like, this is going to be good. I was like, okay, Autumn, you do you, girl. She did her. So that's Autumn. That is the result of what 4 days of exposure to computer science can lead to. And I was very excited to see this, very excited to see her shift in her personality and her confidence. It happened in all the girls. She's just a great example because she sings. So And that's my presentation. If you have any questions, I did leave some cards there. I'm happy to talk to you afterwards, or I'd love to explore a little bit more about how I could help bring computer science to your students. So thank you. Are there any questions before I wrap up? Okay, thank you so much.